The 50 biggest egos in anime. That's right, I am reborn. I am coming back and I am making the anime videos I've always wanted to make but never had the patience to actually sit down and do. This is something I think everyone wants to see because who doesn't like anime characters being insanely egotistic and crazy? I asked you guys on Twitter when I posted the 50 biggest overkills in anime to submit some egotistical anime characters, and I used most of your recommendations to put this list together. As I'm uploading this video, I am requesting entries on Twitter for the 50 biggest massacres in anime, which was suggested by you guys on the last video. So suggest future top 50s you want to see, where I cover all of the greatest of anime. That's what I love to do. I like anime. Now, I don't want to waste too much of your time, so leave a like and subscribe because these videos take a ton of energy and time to actually put together. So if it doesn't have enough likes or enough traction, you ain't getting more. So make sure that happens. Anyway, let's just jump right into it. Now, before getting to the meat and potatoes of this list, I did want to say that one submission stood out to me. Thank you, Shy Lily, on Twitter for saying that the most egotistical anime character is Taku. I love you and I appreciate you tremendously. Thank you for saying this. Okay, so we're not putting him on the list. We're just gonna put him like here as the one honorable mention. All right, Shy Lily, thank you. Thank you. Every time I ask for some crazy, wacky villain shenanigan, you always submit me. Stop it, please. All right, anyway, let's get on to the list. Number 50, Satan from Dragon Ball Z. Listen, I have a lot of overpowered characters on this list. I have a lot of good guys and a lot of bad guys, and I was very intrigued by how ego is handled in anime in general, and I want to do an entire analysis on egos in anime. But I was just as surprised as you are to see Satan being this low on the list. When I first thought of egos, I was like, oh yeah, well, Mr. Satan, this guy has no powers. He's in Dragon Ball, and he's always flexing. Oh, he's gonna take down these opponents. Yeah, he's gonna be the guy to beat Cell. Spoiler, Cell is way up here. The guy literally called himself perfect. He's on the list later. But this dude has a big ego. However, his ego's not completely overpowering. He's funny how he's always flexing and stuff, but I don't think his ego is as big as he makes us believe it is. The guy knows when he's gonna lose a fight, and he knows to be scared of certain adversaries. He's flexing and faking on the entire media and stuff, like Andrew Tate, basically. Saying, oh yeah, I can beat everyone in a fight. Yeah, Mr. Satan, we know you can't. But unlike Andrew Tate, who's making millions of dollars and whose ego is skyrocketing, I don't think Mr. Satan's is as much. He knows he sucks. So that's why he's in the 50th spot. He has an ego without a doubt, but I don't think it's as big as he likes to make us believe it is. Next ego, Ash Ketchum from Pokemon. This guy is entitled to victory. He feels like he deserves the win every single time. He's like, oh man, I mean, I did use an electric type against the ground type again, but I deserve this. I will become the master. Come on, Ash, you're a 10-year-old. You don't deserve anything, all right? You work your butt off. You be smart about it. Maybe you'll get there. You deserve nothing. But the amount of times this dude's complaining how it's not fair when he loses a league, when he clearly does type disadvantages every single time. Come on, dude. Your ego needs to take the blow. But I think it's completely understandable because the next ego on the list is Gary Oak. Yes, this dude is a pompous prick for the entirety of the anime until he takes a big fat L from our boy Ash. The reason why he's so low on the list, despite the massive ego that this dude has for the first couple seasons of Pokemon, driving around in his Bugatti, sitting there with his harem of 14 girls, even though he's like a 10-year-old kid, which is a little weird, it all goes to his head big time. And he wins a lot of matches, and that goes to his head too. Eventually, though, he does lose to Ash, he does become a researcher guy, and he does get a level head. His ego is massive in the beginning, but it kind of trails off as it goes on, so his ego does not remain as one of the biggest egos of all time, but it definitely deserves its spot in the 48th place for some of the biggest egos for the amount of insufferability this dude had for the majority of the early seasons of Pokemon. Every time you saw this man, you wanted to strangle that child. Some children just deserve to be strangled. Don't take that out of context. Anyway, moving on. Next ego, Teruhashi from Psyche Kuso. I dug deep and hard, all right? Teruhashi deserves this spot. Psyche Kuso is an anime about a dude named Psyche who has incredible psychic powers. He has every power you can ever possibly imagine. There's this girl Teruhashi in the world who is the idol. She's beautiful and she thinks that everyone deserves to worship her because of her beauty. We have her inner monologues all the time, how she's this disgusting evil person manipulating everyone around her, even though on the outside she's, oh, oh my god, I'm so wholesome and pure. Basically, she's every streamer ever, okay? Now, Psyche, who could read her mind, because he has every psychic ability on the planet, this dude is not gonna fall for her whims. And she is so peeved that Psyche, this human, this male in her school, doesn't give her all the respect she feels like she deserves by everyone. It frustrates her to no end. She has a pretty hilarious character arc in the Psyche Kuso anime about how she's acting all cute and pure and all the boys are loving her and all the girls are looking up to her and everyone's like, she's oh, so perfect and she's awesome, she's so amazing. And she says, no, I don't deserve any of this. Then you get the inner monologue, that's right, bow before me, dogs. Yeah, one of the biggest egos in anime, incredibly insufferable, beautifully gets stomped on by Psyche every single time they interact. Next ego. I wanted to talk about a fellow by the name of Francis Scott Fitzgerald. He is an antagonist in the second season of the Bungo Stray Dogs anime, an anime that I believe personally is incredibly slept on because it's really damn good. Now, everyone in Bungo Stray Dogs has like specific powers. They're pretty cool powers. Like, they're pretty specific and they have cool twists to them. Francis Scott Fitzgerald's power is the power of capitalism. He's a CIA agent who shows up in the setting that constantly has these fights between the mafia and between the good guys, which is this little group of people trying to maintain the peace. And all of a sudden the CIA jumps in, all right? Fitzgerald is this incredibly rich dude, and his power is he can spend money to increase his physical abilities. And he has the entire CIA backing him, okay? He has the American government funding him. So if he ever has a problem, he could just spend $1 million to increase his strength dramatically. The man literally has capitalism on his side, and he feels like being at the top of the food chain, he has no possible way to be defeated. He has a beautiful meta commentary on how rich people feel like they're like above the rest. They look down at the peasants scrambling below them like ants. And he exemplifies this concept to the extreme. The look on his face when he's finally defeated is so glorious. When the man finally runs out of money, it's just so beautiful watching him crumble. Anyway, I don't know. This is just a personal favorite of mine, watching him actually take a massive L at the end of his arc. But how egotistical is it that this rich guy can literally pay to become stronger than his opponents? It's just so perfect and beautiful. Next ego, Akashi from Kuroko no Basket. So Akashi is this pretty crazy basketball player, okay? He basically has the Sharingan equivalent of being a basketball player. He knows how everyone's muscles work, and he's so careful in how he views them that he can dribble in specific ways that will make people trip and ankle break everyone. So as he's dribbling down the court, he calls his eye the Emperor Eye because he can see even the most minute of details. And he'll just dribble in front of people as they fall before him. And he looks down at them and says, "Kneel before your Emperor." Yeah, he's a pretty terrifying dude, and he's a really cool antagonist all in all, as far as the themes of the story too. This dude deserves to have an ego as big as he does, just because he's that broken. Diminish how insane his ego actually is. Next, Teruki Hanazawa from Mob Psycho. So this is mostly talking about season 1, and the reason why, again, he's this low on the list, despite the insane ego that this dude has, is because he does a 180. He has this cool character arc where he becomes a genuinely nice dude that doesn't think he's God's gift to the world. But when he's first introduced, for those 2 episodes that this guy is wreaking havoc, his ego is way too big. It's basically tangible. His ego becomes as big as his toupee in the next arc. This dude has psychic powers and he doesn't know any other psychics. He literally thinks he's God's gift to the world. He is the protagonist of the world in his mind. So he goes around beating up kids, destroying people, getting girls, and he has psychic powers, so he's able to do all sorts of things to normies. He doesn't tell the normies that he has psychic powers. He just tells them that he's the protagonist of the world. When he finds Mob, another psychic in this world, he attacks him and fights him with full power to crush him, to prove to himself that he is worthy to be called the world's protagonist. God, what a goddamn douchebag. It made me really happy when Mob shaved his head because why not? And then he felt bad about his looks and stuff. Not perfect anymore, are you, Teruki? It was very cool. I liked it a lot. Anyway, next ego, America. That's right, America is the next ego on the list. There's this show, Hetalia, where you have a bunch of characters and each one represents a different country, and America is a douchebag. I don't really want to get into it because I don't want to get canceled by some, you know, Americans. They seem to have a stranglehold on the internet these days, and they don't like me. Not Americans, I just mean random Twitter people. So we're just gonna move on from there. Imagine every American ego stereotype. Put them all together, you got this character. We're moving on to the next ego, Kaguya from Kaguya-sama, Love is War. This is an anime about these two people that love each other. They're both incredibly smart. One of them is incredibly wealthy, that one being Kaguya. And since Kaguya is so smart and so wealthy and so amazing at everything she does and so skilled at everything except for, you know, having large boobs, which I personally think is a superpower. A power that unfortunately my friend Fifi is not endowed with. F's in the chat for Fifi. She's flatter than I am. But Kaguya, who's in love with this dude, is too prideful to admit she is. And he, in turn, who should also kind of be on this list, I just barely edged him off with Satan in 50th place, is also in love with her, but too prideful to admit it to her. And the entire story is basically rom-com death note of these two characters who both love each other, but can't admit it because they feel like if they admit they love each other, they're losing this battle of stubbornness. So that's what the entire story is based on. The foundation of this show is these two egotistical douchebags egoing each other out, having an ego competition. And I personally think Kaguya won the ego competition. She just strikes me as more of an egotistical character. And I'm not saying that as a negative. I think it's a hilarious concept and I think it's a great show. So moving on, next ego, Bakugo from My Hero Academia. Y'all know he was here. Man literally has too much ego to die. Okay, it's crazy. They kill him off? No, sir. Ego's too high. He ain't staying dead. Putting Bakugo here, I feel like goes without saying. Everyone knew he was gonna end up on this list. It was one of my highest recommended requests on Twitter. Man can make explosions with his hands, and he impressed a couple of people in kindergarten, and he's like, oh, god damn, I am the best hero alive. And then proceeds to live that way, and then prove his worth, because he has to be an antagonist to Taku. I guess antagonist isn't the right choice of words in this scenario, but I can't help myself but feel like this man who's bullying children all time is kind of an antagonist. I mean, he's not a villain, but he is an asshole. Ladies and gentlemen, we made it to the top 40, and who better to start off the top 40 than my boy, Gaara. Now again, Gaara's this low because Gaara does his redemption arc thing, and he becomes this incredibly selfless, wholesome fellow later on. Early Naruto Gaara has some of the biggest ego moments I've ever seen. This dude has this tailed beast inside him. Okay, alright. Cool. Now he has the sand power, and sand protects him. Every time someone wants to attack him, the sand will just leap to protect him on its own whimsy. He had a pretty tragic backstory. His father thought he was some demon dude and tried to assassinate his own son, which is, I mean, kind of messed up as far as fathers go. Look, my dad should be taking notes. But because this dude, who everyone tries to end up killing him, but none of them can succeed because the sand itself protects him, it makes him get this god complex kind of situation. And no matter who he fights, no matter who he's up against, they're just not worth his time. I feel like he was up against Lee, and he had to go through mental gymnastics to convince himself that he is born superior, even though he sees Lee breaking the mold, doing the impossible for someone with his disposition. It doesn't matter to Gaara. Gaara beats him despite it being difficult, and Gaara has to go through the crazy mental hula hoops to convince himself, oh yeah, no, I'm just more different, I'm a god, I'm just built different. Listen, it was difficult for me. But it wasn't really difficult for me. Of course, I was going to end up winning because, you know, I'm a god and stuff, you know. It just be like that, sorry. Early Gaara was incredibly frustrating, and he wound up becoming one of the best characters in the entire series, and nothing but respect for Naruto for pulling that off. Next ego, Anos Vondigo. Alright, this dude has so many flexes throughout the story, but I personally think the one that's worth mentioning right now to show you how big this guy's ego is, when he's born. Alright, literally pops out of the womb. His parents are like, oh my god, it's a little baby. What are we gonna call this guy? He's a little baby. And then the baby says, my name is Anos Vondigo, not to be confused with anus, and that is what you shall call me. And the parents are like, oh damn, all right, okay, we'll just call him that, I suppose. I mean, he just said that. This man, out of the womb, commanded more presence than I do with millions of subscribers, okay? And I'm not saying this as a slight to myself. I'm saying that because this dude is terrifying and his ego is tangible. Then he proceeds to, you know, not only win every fight, but obliterate his opponent. The dude's like, well, you know, The only way to beat an atomic nuclear bomb is to become an atomic nuclear bomb. And then he's up against some swordsman. The swordsman's like, oh yes, I am a swordsman and I will battle you with my sword. And he's like, okay, well, I am a nuclear bomb. This dude's on his own level. He's literally on his own wavelength. The ego is tangible, and it's deservingly so. Next ego, Byakuya Kuchiki from Bleach. This dude rubbed me the wrong way from moment uno. This guy shows up instantly, teleports behind the main character, and blood is everywhere. Main character's on the floor, completely obliterated. Ichigo never stood a chance. You didn't even see him draw his sword, let alone put his sword back, let alone strike Ichigo. This guy did not need to do any of that, okay? Ichigo is just some kid who could clearly be completely overpowered, and Byakuga wanted to put him in his place so much that there's no chance this guy is ever gonna get up again, let alone raise a finger against him. Now, Byakuga was wrong because he forgot he was dealing with a shonen protagonists, and shonen protagonists are more stubborn to get up and get hurt again than Twitter is to get up and cancel me again. Slight miscalculation on Byakuya's part. But not only did he do Ichigo dirty, but he monologues against this dude. Ichigo is a kid who was so badly whooped at this point. The man didn't need a monologue to add insult to injury. He did not need to hear the, you are an ant and a peon, you are nothing before me, I, Byakuya Kuchiki, stoic badass that is only slightly racist towards mortals, am so high and far above your league that you have no chance whatsoever at all, so just stay down and dead like the cockroach you are. Did he really need to do that? After whooping him so badly, did he really need to give him the speech too? God, he did not need to at all. This man's ego is really big, really big, really big. It's almost like how in Yu-Gi-Oh! Every time they use Pot of Greed, they have to explain that, Pot of Greed allows me to draw 2 cards. This dude loves his sword so much. He turns his sword into flower petals, and each petal can, like, slice up his opponent, you know, stuff like that. He has to go through this whole monologue. I have 1,000,000 swords because every one of these petals is also my sword. Dude, stop explaining it. We know how it works already. Oh, he will explain it again every time. This man loves hearing himself talk more than me. And I'm a YouTuber who's making a top 50 list now. I'm crazy. Next ego, Aomine Daiki. Kuroko no Basket. This is the second Kuroko no Basket entry on this list, and the final. Even though this dude isn't the main antagonist like Akashi is, I would go as far as to say is that he has a bigger ego. This dude plays game his own rules. Like, he'll jump behind the basket out of bounds, but before touching the floor, he'll throw the basketball over his shoulder to score. This dude goes through hula hoops to go do his crazy maneuvers in ways that he didn't need to. He has a team that he doesn't play with. He's like, listen, if you guys want to play, then I won't. And he'll sit back there. But then his team will be losing, okay? And he'll be like, all right, fine, I'll play. But now you guys can't. And he'll take on the entire team single-handedly. He'll only play when his team isn't backing him up to make it more of a challenge. And then it proceeds to not really be a challenge because then he'll single-handedly be able to defeat the entire opponent. And every single time he scores, he does it a different way. He'll do some other crazy move to beat them every single time. Like, bro, why would I do the same move twice if I could just do a completely different move that's just equally insane and beat you that way instead? The flex is big, but the ego is bigger. Next ego, Asuka, Langley, Soryu, Neon Genesis, Evangelion. The first introduction to tsunderes, at least for young Nuxanor. Listen, at this point, we're all used to the, it's not like I like you or anything trait, but for me, when I was first watching Evangelion, because Evangelion is an old-ass anime, it came out in like 1994, 1995, okay? I'm watching it as a kid, and I'm like, holy moly, wait, so let me get this straight, okay? There's an evil angel thing destroying the world, and it has a potential to wipe out humanity, and Shinji is their best shot. Why is Asuka saying, no, Shinji, don't join me, I'm gonna do this on my own, when, you know, the repercussions to losing is all of humanity getting wiped out? That's not okay. But her ego was big enough that she felt like that was worthwhile. Like, bro, put your ego behind you. Work as a team and beat these enemies. No. I'm gonna risk all of life to do things my way. Okay, Asuka. Big ego. We stay away from these waifus. I don't know, man. That's kind of crazy. Next ego, Kishibe Rohan. From JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 4, this dude pulls. He's a manga artist, okay? He's a really cool character, and by far my favorite Joe Bro, up there with Weather Forecast from Part 6. Absolutely love that guy too. But anyway, Rohan's ego is bigger. And I think the best example of this is when he's playing a dice game against Josuke, okay? And Josuke keeps winning. For some reason. Because the dice is a shape-shifted person and it's always landing well for Josuke. Point is, Rohan can't figure out why Josuke's cheating at this dice game. And he sacrifices everything he owns to figure it out. Everything. His house is in flames. Everything is burning around him. The world is collapsing. He doesn't care if he loses everything he has to his name because he is gonna sit there until he figures out how Josuke is cheating because he knows he's smarter than Josuke. What a cool character. I mean, a little crazy, but that's how we like him in these parts. Anyway, next, Ego, Jesse James. That's right, Team Rocket from Pokemon has such a huge ego and it's glorious. They know they're gonna catch Pikachu one of these days. They've been trying for the last 25 years, but one of these days they're gonna actually do it. They're never gonna stop trying. They're more stubborn than a shonen protagonist. I love Jesse and James. I know Ash is leaving the Pokemon anime, but if Jesse and James don't carry on to the next generation, I will single-handedly boycott Pokemon. Yes, it's the biggest company in the entire world, but I will boycott them, okay? Always with a new plan. And not only do they have a new plan, a new robot, a new strategy, a new flim-flam, a new bamboozle, but they're so sure it's gonna work every time. There's some beautiful ego that has to get poured right into that for them to really believe it works. Next, Ego, Junko from Danganronpa. So, I mentioned Junko here. I have not played the Danganronpa games. I have only watched the first Danganronpa anime. Okay, listen, this is all disclaimers. But Junko's here because a lot of people suggested it on my tweet. I've seen her a little. She's a cuckoo, a total wackadoodle. She makes Dragon Ball fans look sane, but I don't feel like I can really do her justice describing her in just 1 minute without doing enough research first. So I'm just gonna put her here on the few clips that I've seen alone, and we're gonna move on to the next Ego, being Loxus from Fairy Tail. Dude, that arc where Loxus comes back to the Fairy Tail Guild with like his 3 cronies and he's like, all right. I'm gonna become the leader of the Fairy Tail Guild now. So I am gonna challenge all of you to a battle. That's right, an epic battle where the winner will be me. Period. Walks in there, guns blazing, and honestly, he does a pretty damn good job. Like a terrifyingly good job. And now you're probably thinking, how am I gonna surpass a character like Loxus? A character that thinks he's the chosen one. A character that thinks he's entitled to owning everything that other people have built. And a character that thinks he is beloved by fate. A character that thinks he's beloved by God. The next Ego is Hidan from Naruto. This was also a suggestion on the tweet. I don't know if I would have thought of it myself, but then when I actually started thinking about it, I'm like, oh damn, oh damn, oh damn. That's right, he deserves 3 oh damn. Hidan is a dude who's believes that he is still chosen by God. And you know how he proves this belief? You know how he can actually substantiate that claim? Well, he prays to his God every day. And, oh yeah, he's immortal! Oh yeah, I forgot about that! Now, just to put this in perspective, there's this dude, Orochimaru. He's around here trying to figure out different tricks to be immortal forever, alright? Stealing people's bodies, especially if they're children for some reason. I don't know. Someone cancel Orochimaru, please. We get Orochimaru canceled, please. He's creepy as hell. Enough he was a terrorist, didn't need to be a pedophile too. And Orochimaru, he's basically buddies with Hidan. They're both in the Akatsuki, but he's like, no. I'm not gonna, like, steal Hidan's body because it's Hidan's fate that's keeping him alive. For some reason, this dude just keeps coming back. I don't know. That would go to anyone's head, all right? If I was immortal, I'd have an even bigger ego. All right, Shy Lily? Think you're so cool submitting me and I'm not even immortal? Or am I? I mean, I haven't died yet, so, like, I mean, maybe, though. And now I know you're probably thinking, all right, this dude, he has a big ego, he's walking around, feels like he owns the world because he's immortal and he's the chosen one by God. Bro, how are you gonna top someone who thinks they're chosen by God? Well, by choosing God. That's right, the next Ego on this list is Enel from One Piece. Now, you know how you top someone like Hidan who thinks he's chosen by God? You pick Enel, someone who thinks he's God, all right? This dude has the devil fruit of lightning. He can become a lightning bolt, he can move the speed of lightning. The guy is terrifying, all right? He also has extremely long earlobes. I know that's not really relevant, I just don't like mentioning it. Look how long his earlobes are, goddamn. Anyway, this dude can sense anything that happens within his domain. And anytime something happens in his domain that he doesn't like, he allows divine judgment to be rained on them. A lightning bolt will strike them from above. He calls himself God Ender. This man is scary as hell. He's a cool AF antagonist, and he thinks he's a god. I mean, anyone that disagrees with him in his territory, he just strikes down with lightning. Maybe he is a god. Maybe he deserves this ego. I don't know. It's crazy. Anyway, we move on. The next ego I wanted to talk about is Endeavor from My Hero Academia, because I know that there's no way this dude has a bigger ego than the dude who thinks he's a god, but somehow he strikes me as the type of guy who does. Because Enel may have a big ego thinking he's a god, and that's fair, because, you know, in his domain, he kind of is a god. He's just stronger than everyone. Anyone that says a word against him gets struck down. Literally heavenly smite, blasting them from out of orbit. Endeavor has the balls to think he deserves to be the #1 hero when he's literally weaker than All Might in every single way. That is a special kind of ego. That is an ego that borders on complete delusional ability. That's not a word. But his ego is so massive, he's delusional. Endeavor's like, yeah, I'm the #1 hero. I'm gonna definitely be the best. I'm really deserving of the spot. Look at me, I blow fire. And then All Might is just so out of his league in every possible way. Dude, how big is your ego to think that you deserve the #1 hero spot above a guy who's more moral than you, more righteous than you, and literally stronger than you in every possible way? The only thing you're better at than All Might is causing climate change, okay? Put your big boy pants on and take a look at yourself and recognize the fact that you will never surpass that man. But no, the man still thinks, yeah, I'm gonna do it. You're not gonna do it, homie. Next ego, Excalibur from Soul Eater. All right, so Soul Eater has a cool dynamic and power system. For those of you that are not aware, you have two people. You have one dude who's the wielder and one dude who's the weapon. The dude can transform into a weapon, and the wielder uses that weapon to take down demons and stuff. All right, pretty straightforward and basic anime shenanigans. Excalibur is a weapon. He becomes the most ultimate sword ever. Now, Excalibur, who knows that he's the most ultimate sword ever, is like, bro, if I'm gonna be wielded by somebody, I may as well get exactly what I want. And he is the most annoying, insufferable character on the face of the planet. Because he's like, bro, someone's gonna want to wield me anyway. I mean, literally just me with any pee-pee poo-poo wielder out there, it doesn't matter. They'll obliterate all their opponents. I am that strong. So I'm just gonna be completely insufferable. Now, his episodes are some of my favorites because as someone completely insufferable, I love this character so much. But anyway, we're gonna have to be moving on because I do want to finish this video at some point in 2023. Next ego, Eins Ulgaun from Overlord. Okay, this guy is really powerful. He's trapped in a game. All right, he's really strong. There are other characters that are out there that were players that are also powerful, but it doesn't matter. This dude is so strong that he warps the entire plot around him, that most of the plot is not about him. Most of the plot in Overlord is about all the other characters and all the other different political ecosystems and stuff going on, and then he conquers them. Yeah, he's so strong and his ego is so big, you can't have him have most of the screen time in his own show, because if you did, you wouldn't have a show. You would just have this dude overpowering everyone. So you give all the other characters time to shine in different political systems so that they could be overpowered by Eins. The story is called Overlord, and his ego echoes that sentiment big time. Next, Tatsumaki from One Punch Man. So Tatsumaki is this little flying lolly, all right? And she has psychic powers, and she's really strong, and she cannot get it into her head that someone's stronger than her, even though Saitama beats her in every possible and feasible dimension. Her ego is so big, she doesn't feel like she deserves to lose any fight ever because of how powerful her psychic powers are. She's a really cool character. I think she's hilarious and awesome and a great addition to the One Punch Man world. Except she has to complain a little less when someone might be stronger than her. God, get a room with yourself. Because you're stroking your own dick. That was the joke. That was the joke. All right, anyway, we're moving on. Next ego, Sinbad from Magi. Sinbad has a big ego, and that's because he's really strong. In this world where most people have possession of one Jin and they're considered a formidable opponent, this dude has 7. He's cleared out 7 Jins, and his ego is so high, he decides, I'm gonna make my own nation. He does, and his nation becomes basically the most powerful nation in the world. I know, it's actually crazy. His ego is huge, but it deserves to be that big. I feel like if anything, he has low self-esteem for how badass he is. Okay, that was obviously an exaggeration. But this dude is so powerful and so badass and so influential, he deserves every ounce of ego that he actually has, to the point that it feels like he doesn't have an ego. Because, you know, he's like, oh, me? I'm just some regular guy. I don't mind if you make fun of me. Because he can just wipe out your entire military single-handedly. He's a very scary man. Next ego, Echidna from ReZero. So, this one's spoiler territory. And I try not to do spoilers in these videos because I can't imagine you've seen every single anime that I'm talking about here. But imagine someone who kind of wants something and then kills out all of her family, I suppose, in a weird way, to get it to happen, and then thinks she is such a superior being to everyone else. Not only does she not feel bad, but she feels like she's entitled to everything that everyone else owns, including their lives. I feel like that was a vague way enough to say that Echidna has an incredibly huge ego, and she is by far best girl in ReZero. Sorry, Rem stans. Sorry, Amelia Tards. We move on to Alucard from Hellsing Ultimate. Y'all knew he'd be here. This dude sucks his own dick more than he takes L's. In other words, he sucked his dick like one time. He walks around uber confident no matter who he's up against. And the reason why I wanted to put him this high on the list is not because he manages to overpower everyone. Not because he's stronger than everyone. Not because he can unleash literal hell upon his opponents. No. None of that. No. It's because when there's a fight, and he's losing because he's not unlocking his powers or whatever, who cares, whatever. He's losing a fight and he's being chopped to bits. He's just an eyeball of him remains, just rolling on the ground. He still has more ego than the people he's fighting. The little eyeball or scrap of him that remains has more ego than any of his opponents combined. He will laugh at you even as a literal floating hair. That takes some ego, boy. That takes some ego. Next ego, Sasuke Uchiha from Naruto. Now, I know what you're thinking. Bro, you just talked about Alucard, okay? Alucard can be cut down to be nothing but cinders and a toenail, and he will stare down anyone. Sasuke? Sasuke? Yeah, I'm putting Sasuke here. And the reason why is because in the original Naruto, Sasuke wanted to defeat his brother, and he couldn't, because Itachi's awesome, and Itachi slapped him up so hard, he looked like Logan Paul after getting exposed by CoffeeZilla. But anyway, he sees Naruto is getting better, and he's like, whoa. Naruto's getting better? Well, I'm gonna fight him. They have this hospital rooftop battle, him versus Naruto, and it looks like Naruto's attack was more damaging than even his own. So he's like, oh my god, Naruto surpassed me. Whoa. And because of his ego, he completely abandons all of his morals and ideals, joins the dark side of the Force, gets this crazy curse mark, becomes a puppet of a dude who wants his body, no pun intended, and changes his entire way of life. That is some big-ass ego. Alrighty, it's top 20 time. Next ego, Kiro Yoshikage from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 4. This dude's a serial killer with a crazy hand fetish. He'll kill people, blow them up, keep their hands, and then, you know, I don't know, jack off on the hands. We never exactly figured out why he likes these hands, but that's probably why. They give great hand jobs. And it's not like whoever's delivering that hand job is gonna talk or whatever and ruin the mood. None of that, it's just a hand. Anyway, this dude's a crazy psycho serial killer, and he thinks he deserves a normal life. He's like, I'm Kira Yoshikage, I just want to live a normal, peaceful life. Anyway, he's going out there murdering people and stealing their body parts, and he's like, man, I deserve a normal life. That's a big ego. I mean, I respect it. I don't respect it. I take that back, Twitter. Don't take that out of context. Next, Ego Cell. The man called himself perfect. No one should be calling themselves Perfect Cell and the Perfect Being. Perfect Being, ding, 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 ding. That's a red flag, homie. That's a red flag. Next, Ego. Tanya from the Saga of Tanya the Evil. Let me catch you up on some lore. Episode 1, Tanya the Evil. Tanya the Evil. Normal Japanese salaryman dude. Walking down the street, everything's going well. Oops, he fell into the subway. The subway is about to hit him. Here's the voice of God. I will revive you and bring you into another world. And he's like, bro, God's not real. Anyway, he gets revived, brought into another world. He's this little Tanya chick. She's basically midget Hitler, flying around, crazy powerful, total psycho. And every once in a while, God speaks to Tanya. And he's like, Tanya, I, God, have revived you. You are now in this world. And Tanya says to God, God's not real. Like, bro, hold up. You were just saved from your existence in one world, reborn into another world, as this little flying Hitler midget. You are so strong and scary. God, the voice of God, talks to you and is like, yo, I have done all this, and I will now do all these things, and starts predicting the future and shiz. And she has the balls, the ego, to tell God that God's not real? Anyway, she definitely deserves this spot. We're moving on. Next, Ego. How did it to my head? From Roka no Yusha. So now there are all these warriors that are gathering together to defeat the Demon King. You got this pretty basic premise. Anyway, it becomes this crazy story of how there's supposed to be 6 warriors. There ended up being 7, so that means one of the 7 is an imposter, and they each have to kind of play Among Us to try and figure out who the imposter is. That one's sus. No, that one's sus, but I saw her vent. Anyway, we're living in a world where you got these women priestess ladies, and they have crazy magic powers. The men, no powers. Very progressive anime we have here. But anyway, I admire this dude who has no powers, who's on this team with a lot of these priestess women with crazy powers, is like, I am the strongest person alive. Everyone's like, bro, Adlet Meyer, what are you talking about? You are an absolute buffoon. So what does Adlet Meyer do to prove that he's the strongest man alive? Well, there's this massive tournament going on between all these different people. All the strongest fighters in the world get together. He waits for the finals, where it's the 2 strongest people fighting against each other. Then he invades the stage alone, announces and proclaims to the world that he's the strongest man alive, and then beats both of them in a fight. And then, since he's, you know, invading the palace to do all this, he gets attacked by all the guards, beats them too, then proceeds to continue flexing on how he's the strongest man alive. The ego and balls on this man are tremendous. Next, ego. Reigen Arataka from Mob Psycho on. This dude has no powers. He is in a world full of demonic spirits and evil psychics. At the end of the first season, because I don't want to actually spoil his character arc or whatever in the 2nd season or the 3rd season, he walks into this corporation where all of these head honcho crazy psychic people are planning world domination. And because of his charisma and confidence alone, he can turn half of their forces to his own side. Not through morals, just through fear. He says, I am commanding you now. And they're like, oh my god, this man, he just walked into this compound. He's so powerful. He has the balls to do that and command us? Even though we're an army, of course we'll work for him. Based on his charisma alone and the ego that he has to push himself forward, taking steps nonchalantly and suavely into the arena. Everyone obeys. He becomes a de facto leader of a massive psychic uprising just because of the ego that he has. He has no powers. He'll go up against a crazy psychic opponent. He'll pull out this little hypnotic coin and he'll use the ultimate power, the hypnosis punch, where the guy fixates his eyes on the coin and he's like, please, I sense nothing from you. Your power will do nothing to me. And he's holding the coin in front of him and then punches him in the face when he's not expecting it. Bro, this man, he's just a legend. I love him so much. Next, ego. Frieza from Dragon Ball. Y'all knew he'd be there. Racist space Hitler. God damn. This man is like blowing up planets because he feels like it. Calling people monkeys because he's a racist, I guess. My man screams ego wherever he goes, and it just feels good every time he gets revived again because you just know he's gonna take another L. Anyway, next ego, Sukuna from Jujutsu Kaisen. I love a man. His nuts are everywhere. Every time you could say, oh man, name a villain like, you know, his fingers, you're lost everywhere. You mean Sukuna? Sukundi's nuts. He exudes the power to be able to get people online. And that's pretty cool. All right, that's not why he's up here. He's up here because the dude is shredded. He's broken up into millions of pieces. He's completely weakened. And he has the entire world on a deadlock, terrified that he might come back at some point. And he knows it. He'll just sit there on his goddamn throne of bones and blood, just cackling because, bro, it might take a year, it might take a century, it might take a millennia, but I will be back and I will own the world. This dude's in no rush because he knows it's his destiny. It's a big ego. Next, ego. Griffith. Remember everything I said about Sukuna a minute before? It's his destiny to rule the world and stuff. Well, Griffith is that times 10, okay? This dude sacrifices every single person he knows and loves to walk on their pile of corpses to attain godhood. He is now one of the Godhead. He now owns the world, at least in his mind. So basically, everyone in the world now, they're just like kind of his playthings. He does what he wants, makes them think he's a good guy, makes them think he's a bad guy. He kills some of them, he leaves some of them alive. This dude views everyone else as lesser than him. That's a big ass ego. But next, ego. Father from Dude, I feel weird. I've been talking about like these god characters for a while now. The last bunch of characters are all like, all right, so this dude, basically a god. And Father is no different. He absorbed millions of souls to become this ultimate perfect being. And again, he feels like the world deserves to be owned by him. All right, I'll just sacrifice all of humanity to make myself even stronger. Whatever, why not? They deserve to be. They're so lucky to be souls trapped for eternity inside my bosom. Dude, these over cocky villain guys, they're just scary as hell. And there are so many of them. Oh my God. But the good news is the top 10 is different. The top 10 are 10 characters that I think far surpass anyone up until this point. The egos of the top 10 are so big and so powerful that they are in their own league from everyone beneath them. Number 10, Vegeta from Dragon Ball. Okay, we talked about Frieza, we talked about Cell, we talked about Satan. We have a lot of Dragon Ball characters here. Vegeta is not like the rest of those peons in regards to ego. Vegeta is the prince of all ego. This man powers up. He's fighting Cell. He thinks that Cell will be stronger when Cell absorbs the android dudes and Cell becomes perfect Cell, blah, 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 blah. He waits and lets Cell power up so he could beat him then, and then loses. He has the ego without the might to back it up. He thinks he's the strongest despite losing to Goku every single season. He always thinks the next moment is his time to shine. He always thinks he is the strongest. He is and has the birthright to be the strongest, but he never is. But he doesn't learn from that because his ego's so big. That's a big ego. That's a big ego. Next, Buggy from One Piece. Now, we talked about NL before, this dude who thinks he's a god, and now we're talking about Buggy, a god who thinks he's a dude. Buggy's not strong. He's beaten right in the beginning of One Piece. He is not exactly someone that deserves to be revered as a terrifying character. Despite this, due to his ego, due to him playing his odds and playing the world, he manages to attain a level of infamy, the likes of which almost no other pirate has seen. As he proceeds to go through the story, despite having nothing but his ego, and he doesn't know when to quit, he will continue to amass fame and power every step of the way. It's crazy. My bet is Buggy becomes Pirate King, if only for a minute before Luffy. I don't know, like they find the One Piece, it's this magic hoopla, Luffy's like, oh my god, it's the magic hoopla. Buggy's there first, gets the magic hoopla, becomes the Pirate King. If only for a minute, he will become Pirate King. You'll see his ego will lead him to that goal. It will happen. Next, ego, Lelouch v. Britannia. I feel like talking about his ego gets deep into spoiler territories. This is the anime Code Geass. It is a damn good show, and it's one that every single one of you should watch. It's one that when I recommended to Kason, he was like, Code Geass? And I was like, yes, that's the one. Lelouch's ego is big, and he deserves a big ego due to the crazy things he manages to accomplish in his lifetime. But his ego is too big, and at some points, it does topple a king. Next, ego, Poseidon from Record of Ragnarok. I'm really glad I got to have Poseidon all the way up here. He deserved to make his debut in a Nux video at some point, and I'm glad he did. This dude's a god, and he looks down at mortals. He looks down at gods, too. But when he's up in this battle against a mortal, not only a mortal, but a mortal who's never won in a prominent battle, dude, the arrogance, which is why it's just so glorious to watch that facade crumble as he actually faces his first ever opponent. Poseidon is a terrifying character. He feels like no one is even worthy of his attention, let alone his power. And he's damn scary. Next, ego, Light Yagami from Death Note. This guy is hubris incarnate. He starts killing people with his magic notebook. All of a sudden, criminals in the world are plopping dead of heart attacks. All of a sudden, he's like, bro, I am a god. Damn, holy moly. I'm not just a dude, I'm a god. I am justice. And the entire story really starts spiraling from this point where he thinks he's a god, and this world is his for the taking. His ego is what propels him to the point that he is. He doesn't even believe in the ideals that he spouts when he becomes Kira before he's Kira. It's only once he attains this crazy power that he becomes the embodiment of the phrase, with absolute power, you become corrupted absolutely. And he lives that phrase every goddamn day. Next, ego. Ladies and gentlemen, we made it to the top 5. The top 5 are big, very big. Number 5 is the entire cast of Blue Lock. Blue Lock is a brand new soccer anime that I just watched, and it was pretty damn good. I liked it a lot. Now, the thing that I've noticed about Blue Lock is that every single character has an ego the size of the planet. So I'm just dumping the entire cast here in the 5th spot. It's a story where they take the top 300 soccer striker guys in all of Japan, all right? They put them in this crazy boot camp where they're up against each other, and the way it works is whoever manages to beat the entire boot camp and become the one man standing at the end of this entire training process becomes the chief striker on the official Japanese soccer team, which is like, okay, interesting. It doesn't really make so much sense. And then you realize what they're really doing. It is a battle of egos. where people are gonna undermine and trick their own teammates because they think that it'll put them in a higher standing at the very end. It breeds egos. It is a program that breeds the strongest ego, where that will be the last man standing. Especially because anyone that loses this blue block program is never allowed to compete in the sport of soccer ever again. I know, it's not exactly a premise that makes a lot of sense, but it doesn't matter, because it's really hilarious watching people's dreams crumble right before other people's eyes. The main character who's like, you know, seemed like a nice dude, he'll end up beating someone and he'll see them and he'll be like, whoa, I just beat this guy. Now he'll never be able to follow his dream of playing soccer ever again. Why does that feel so good? It is a story of ego breeding, and it's really scary to watch it destroy human beings. Anyway, I liked it because I like watching human beings getting destroyed. Next, ego. Oh boy, Seto Kaiba deserves his own goddamn video, let alone being just at the top of this list. Richest man in the world keeps losing to a spiky-haired kid in a card game and is willing to divert all of his company's funds into finding a way to beat this kid in a card game. Because, goddammit, he is gonna be the king of games. I love it so much. He's the president of the most powerful company in the entire world. You realize this, right? The most powerful company in the world. He's the equivalent of Jeff Bezos in the Yu-Gi-Oh world, and all of his funds is going into beating some kid in a card game. He feels like he needs this so much. In the movie, he creates a time machine to go back in time 3,000 years to beat the kid's ass in his past life. It's like, oh my god, dude. Goddamn. He sends Yu-Gi-Oh cards to space because if there's sentient life out there, he wants to teach them how to duel so he can prove his dominance by beating them in a duel too. I love him so much. He's such a madman. Anyway, I can't give enough time to any of these characters, so I'm just gonna be moving on because this video needs to finish eventually. Next, ego, Escanor from the 7 Deadly Sins. This man is the sin of pride incarnate. His ego is so big, he can't bring himself to hate people because anyone that exists is just there to be pitied because they are so far beneath. It doesn't even matter if his best friend and closest confidant in life is killed brutally by somebody. He can't bring himself to hate them because they're like an ant. You're gonna hate an ant? No, but you could pity them. If even a god approaches Escanor, Escanor looks at that god with nothing but pity. Oh my god, the ego on this man. When I first came up with this idea for the 50 biggest egos in anime, I was like, well, you know, Escanor is just gonna be at the top. I was very surprised when he ended up in 3rd place, because the next biggest ego that I'm going to be talking about is Sosuke Aizen from Bleach. Now, he was a highly suggested anime character, again, on my Twitter thing, and he deserves that respect on his name. Aizen is a very powerful dude. He attains incredible powers and stuff. He's very strong. Okay, all that's very nice and cool. Can we just appreciate the fact that he manipulated Ichigo's entire life, putting him in the exact position? He literally handpicked Ichigo's parents and was like, bro, I should watch them have sex now and produce a child because it would have the statistically highest chance to be the strongest thing ever. And then he proceeds to introduce opponent after opponent to Ichigo his entire life, getting him as strong as he possibly can to prove his own power and beat him. He's like, bro, Ichigo, this dude, he has the potential to be the strongest person ever. So I'm just gonna do this, everything, to make him as strong as he possibly can, with the highest potential, because I can prove that I can beat him, and that'll be prove that I'm even stronger. What? Like, this makes no sense. It doesn't even fit into his logic for, like, why he's doing most of what he's doing, but it doesn't matter. The man's a madman, and he definitely deserves this spot on the list. I think Aizen is such a cool antagonist, and I'm so happy he made it to the top of the list, or should I say, almost, because before the King of Kings, before the absolute #1 biggest ego in anime, I had to mention these other 49 characters. These other 49 characters who should be treated as nothing more than dogs. Nothing more than filthy, barking mongrels sitting there below at the foot of the throne of their absolute and true emperor from the Fate franchise. Not a single one of these absolute peons that think they can bark at table scraps deserve to even be at his feet and at his heel. Gilgamesh is the true King of Kings and deserves this spot as the #1 biggest ego in anime. A man with an ego so big that his own master in the Fate War that summoned him to fight by his side is not only not someone that he calls master, but someone that calls him master. When entering the Holy Grail War, a holy battle of different servants all coming together, you got these 7 epic creatures throughout history that are in this crazy Fortnite battle royale where the winner wins the Holy Grail, this crazy cup of goblet of epicness that will, you know, obey and serve, grant one wish, blah, blah, blah. It's incredibly holy, etc., etc. Gilgamesh enters this battle not because, oh my god, I'm gonna get a wish to come true. No, because he's defending what's his. It's his. The Grail's not his. Yes, it is. Because everything in the world belongs to Gilgamesh, the true king of kings. I love this man so much. He is so scary, and there's no amount of words that I can use to describe how big his ego actually is. But I'm glad he's able to sit here where he belongs, at the top of the list, forever remaining as the biggest ego in anime. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. This was a big ass video. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I am keeping my promise to you. 2023 Nux is different. Built different. Share the video, like the video, comment on the video, watch the whole video, put it on loop in the background so that it gets more watch time, it gets more views. I don't know, do all that fun stuff. Let me know a future top 50 biggest list you want me to do, because this is the type of content that I love that no one does because it's too much work. And I actually respect that, because I'm going hoarse, because this video was a nightmare to put together. But I'm looking forward to the next one, the top 50 biggest massacres in anime. Leave a like, subscribe, let me know. Have yourself a most wonderful evening, and remember to stay